Let's go! Is Garrett Nussmeier to blame for the worst offensive performance of the Brian Kelly era? Yes, it was this game versus Louisiana Tech. At the end, one stat that is going to blow your mind and should worry you, but LSU is indeed 2-0, and Nick Anderson got going. A nice catch right here. This wasn't Garrett's best ball. Obviously, you'd want him to be able to keep his feet. Maybe Nick should have flattened this route out a little bit more. These two still getting chemistry together. So come into this with an open mind. We're mostly focusing on the throws. We'll get into the run game a little bit later in the week. But my goodness gracious, it's about to get ugly. I do think this Garrett INT is a bit concerning. So his deep ball accuracy has not been his biggest superpower. Slot fade accuracy is very different than just deep sideline ball accuracy. I think Garrett feels more comfortable throwing slot fades, but this obviously is just a sideline ball to Berrien Brown. Not many receivers in college football you want more in this situation than him. He's very comfortable working the sidelines. And even if you go back to some of Garrett's sideline balls that have been completed, they do have a tendency to kind of peter off and drift inwards. And that's actually the worst place to miss here because there's just more help to the inside. And you could see that because this ball is just thrown so short, the corner who is beat by at least 5 yards is able to catch that ball or actually just bat it up and it get deflected into the arms of another DB. So it is concerning. So we're going to talk about Joe Sloan some. One final thing on this INT. We're in trips. Actually, we're in quads to the left, single receiver to the right side. Protection here is perfect. I mean, honestly, it is indeed really good. So in this scenario, you could see the wind isn't blowing either. You really can't think of a better scenario than this early in the game. Is he overextended? I don't know. I'm just not smart enough when it comes to QB mechanics. But you could see this ball does have a bit of a flutter to it. You know, the best deep ball thrower I've ever seen at LSU is Jaden Daniels. That ball, even though it's not like Josh Allen level arm strength, it was on a line. This was very interesting. So last year, the guy who ran these pivots to convert third downs was Aaron Anderson. But this time, Aaron Anderson is the innermost slot, and then you have Trades Green running a pivot, and then you have a pivot right here. A pivot is when you go to the inside and back outside, or vice versa. And honestly, that is simple pitch and catch. Xavion's going to eat versus most corners in that spot, and really, really, really good stuff. This is a very creative piece of coaching from LSU. With Trades Green on the field as your tight end, you're not really sacrificing any wide receiver talent. So you could put a big body out here matched up against a small slot corner, and vice versa. It's also true. You have a small receiver who essentially chips a defensive end here to help out Tyree Adams or to help pick up this blitzer coming off the edge. And then this corner can lose him in the mush, right? Now he has his eyes on him, but Xavion's going to beat him in a foot race every single time. So if I'm Garrett, yes, I do have Juwan Johnson in a one-on-one matchup here, but Juwan's not been nearly as explosive of a weapon as Xavion's been. And I like the angle here better for Xavion than to throw this, okay? So I do think Garrett made the wrong decision, but it's still fine quarterback play. What a throw right here by Garrett. On the play before, he did one of these kind of spinning pirouettes. Actually, I think it was 2 plays before. Either way, this is an interesting play design right here on 3rd and 8. On a rush 3, drop 8. Mesh isn't, to me, the best thing to be run. I also see quite a bit, like we saw with the Juwan rep, a lot of drags being run right behind checkdowns. The spacing of this just seems a little strange, but Garrett does see an opening to Berrien Brown, has to throw it high, almost too high, and Berrien, look at that catch. I think you're looking at the best receiver on this team. And the truth is, Barryon's a different style of player than Aaron, right? Who's morely a pure slot receiver. So I want to have a conversation here about pass protection, and I want you to take a look at this play, and you tell me whose fault it was that Garrett Nussmeier had to roll out to the right side here, okay? And if your answer is trade as green, it is correct. So at first, it looks as if this is Weston Davis's fault. And to be honest, it is honestly Weston Davis's fault. But it's also trade as Green's fault. So Green is here to help do something called a chip, CHIP, which is just a little nudge of this defensive end to help slow him down on the path here as we're trying to get vertical on first down. The problem here is you'll see that trade as Green doesn't really chip him at all, right? Didn't even get a piece of him. Now, that's a problem for two reasons. Number one, we're helping Weston out because he's a first-year starter who's been struggling. But number two, when you go to chip, you can see that this actually cuts off the pass set of Weston. You can see the footwork here gets a little choppy, and it just throws you off kilter when you're going back into your pass set. You're expecting the guy to the right of you, a 6'7" behemoth, to get a piece, and he doesn't actually get a piece, and Weston gets beat, okay? So now we want Garrett to roll out and make something happen, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of Garrett Nussmeier rollouts. It sometimes can lead to disasters, but it sometimes can lead to this. What a good piece of quarterbacking and a good piece of wide receiver play. This will always be a danger when Garrett is able to see pretty quickly that this corner is bailing, so he knows that this comeback route is going to be open. This got picked off versus Texas A&M, but I believe it was to the short side of the field, so it's near impossible for the linebacker to get out there. Really good quarterbacking by Garrett. Man, there's just not many quarterbacks who are playing that quick in college football, and it's able to pick up a first down. Garrett's best throw of the night is honestly this red zone throw, an area of the field where he has struggled. 3rd and 6, Garrett backs up, buys some time, then steps up into the pocket. Some really good pass protection across the way. I don't care if it's just a 3-man rush. It's hard to block big bodies for that long. And guess what? We get a tutty. So we do get an end zone angle. It is kind of tight. So we are working to the right side. Nothing is open. Now you can make a case that we want to top shelf this ball right here, throw it high to trade as green with the anticipation, but Garrett decides to extend and then go to the next window here with Nick Anderson. And it's honestly not the most open thing. Garrett is actually throwing against his body and just throws an absolute rocket. Look at that. Really sexy stuff. So we get more good quarterbacking here from Garrett Nussmeier. Starts off looking to the left. Nothing is open. He tries to go to Kyle here up the middle. There is a safety you just can't see. Maybe this still could be fit in, but Garrett decides to go full field, kind of like the Clemson throw to Xavier last week. He's not even able to step up into it and throws a strike there to Barry. He fit this ball to Chris down the sideline, but you could see at the snap, the safety actually is already starting to move towards Chris, and Garrett had already made his mind up. So Garrett on this ball to Chris. There is some pressure. DJ kind of gets in his lap, but this is still clean enough for Garrett to make this throw down the sideline. And, man, I don't know. Does this hang in the air a while to you? Chris does get pulled, but, man, it's almost picked as well. So let's just say right here Chris doesn't get pulled. Is he making this catch right here? I don't know. It's some type of collision 50-50 ball. Ugh. Now, this was the play that a lot of you sent me that Garrett missed, and it was just so unfreaking believably blatant. Honestly, the quarterback play here is really, really, really good. Now, before I actually show you what happens here, yes, it would have been nice to get Barrow Sharp in the corner of this end zone. But take a look at this actual pre-snap alignment. There's no way Garrett could have known that number 7 who is leveraged to the outside of Barisharp running a corner route. There's no way that he could have known that at the snap, 7, you could see that this is misaligned on the back end. 7 actually runs all the way over here to trade as Green to bracket him and double team him. And then 9 is now Barisharp's man-to-man assignment. So this is an all-out coverage bus, and Garrett actually is looking in this direction. But yes, would you like a quarterback of Garrett's caliber to actually still see this? I think this kind of did spook him. I doubt this was the design. Yes, you would like Garrett to hit this or hit this, okay? One final thing, I want to show you an actual NFL rep of this. So, one thing I would say as far as Garrett is concerned, I personally, in this spot, okay, you guys know, trips has become my new favorite thing in this LSU offense based on all our research during the offseason of how much better LSU was when they had 3 receivers to one side of the line of scrimmage. Now, it's not like that in every offense, or at least I would like to think that's not the case, but when you're in trips, more than likely the defensive coverage is going to put more players on one side of the formation to guard against it, especially if you have a tight end and a running back to the left side of the formation. So watch what actually happens to the bottom here. The Patriots have 5 defenders shaded to these 3 over here, okay? So if there's 5 defenders for these 3 over here, and it is a 4-man rush, guess what? We got one-on-one to the backside. Now, the one-on-ones is a running back and a tight end. So what I would say to Garrett in this spot is I want to work these one-on-ones regardless of what I think the coverage looks like, regardless of what I think the leverage actually looks like, even though this was outside leverage on an in-breaking route. So that is an important part of the equation, and Jackson Dart throws an absolute strike. In the spot, I understand Garrett would probably feel a little bit more comfortable if this was Caden Durham, but still, I like working the 2-on-2s, right? I know I have 2-on-2 on this side. Simply put, I know if this guy blitzes, I could just hit Juwan in the flat. If one of these 2 guys actually does decide to come off the edge here, one of them's going to be wide open. All right, so even though if one of these guys didn't fly off the edge or blitz or whatever, you still would have gotten it right, okay, with the coverage bus. So honestly, I would have worked the 2-on-2 instead of working the bottom here anyway. Okay, so I understand. Yes, you would like to see the Barisharp touchdown to be thrown. Now, this is why this is still really good quarterbacking from Garrett Nussmeier. You get a nickel blitz, right? And it is really well disguised, or at least from my vantage point, the guys in the field will always be able to tell if it's a better disguise because they can see quite a few things that you can't see from here. So, untouched blitzer, not really anyone's fault. It is Garrett's job to get this guy off of him or to have thrown it by the time the blitzer gets there. So, Garrett sees the blitzer, and this is not where we really want Garrett to be, right? There's going to be more athletic corners that he's not going to be able to get around in this spot, but Garrett does do it soundly, 2 hands on the football, and look at that. Some really good athleticism to get around. And take a look at the actual throw here. All things considered, Kyle Parker drops it. It's a bad drop, too. I mean, look, this ball hits him, bam, right in the chest. A brutal, brutal night for 1-2. So this next clip was actually a live breakdown during our halftime/third quarter show. So we do go live. Won't be for the Florida game, but for all the other games outside of Texas A&M, pregame, halftime, postgame, and don't forget Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central as well. We do not want to hit this offensive lineman and blindside him. That should have been 15 right there. Okay? I mean, it's not even part of the play. And then obviously, look at this. Garrett's comfortably running for the first down, or at the very least getting in field goal range. And also, if you're to throw one, why wouldn't you throw this to Aaron at the 10? And then, it's a hopeful up here to Chris. So this should be honestly very easy to sort out. So they do end up bringing both backers. So when Garrett sees that both backers are being brought, let's just hit Bauer sharp right there at the eye. Okay, let's make it a second and manageable. And Garrett is looking in that direction right there. Then, uh, so this really isn't on the offensive line right here. Deep drop right here by Garrett. I don't, and they pick up the first down, whatever. Really deep drop by Garrett, and we do eventually get Berrien streaking down the left sideline. Dude, now that's got to be released. I mean, either or. I don't know exactly what he's looking at. Is he trying to work this dig right here to Nick? This is open. This is a bad rep by Garrett. This is on Garrett. I understand that Mabenga eventually did get into his lap. Pause. But even this right here, let's see if we can get out of this. Okay, if he's able to squirt and keep his feet, he's running for a country mile, and he kind of trips on himself. So that is entirely on Garrett. And then we get to where Garrett is arguably the best of all time at the LSU quarterback position, and that is third and long. He was the country's best third and long QB. This time, you do get some really good protection here. You do get a twist stunt that gets home, but not after a fight. All right, this is a good job by Mabenga and company actually passing this off. We don't like the fact that this is essentially untouched. Maybe Caleb could have sniffed this out. No, he's never sniffing that out right there. But honestly, man, this is just such great quarterbacking by Garrett. He sees that Aaron is man-to-man right here, so he knows he just needs to back up to give Aaron enough space to get into this space right here. Man, you really can't play this position that much better than he does right here while taking a pretty big blow. And goodness gracious, look at that. Wow. To throw that and pick up the first down is pretty clutch. So, what was really interesting in evaluating Garrett, and it is currently 3:45 in the morning, after rewatching this game, I said in the post-game show after I started the show saying I thought Garrett did not play well, that I felt on a rewatch I would be a little bit more sympathetic to him. And the truth is, that is certainly the case. There are so many drops I didn't show you. There was actually another Kyle Parker touchdown drop that I didn't show you. Aaron Anderson, another difficult touchdown drop. A few other drops, a perfectly layered ball to Berrien Brown. This was a really tough game for the LSU wide receivers. It was good seeing Nick get going. He overall had a good game. But this right here is just not a good throw. A better safety, I think, is actually picking that ball off. Garrett has had some issues throwing it late over the middle. Berrien was just really good in this game. Right here, let's see, where could he have gone with this ball? Yeah, I think on first and Valonia here, you just got to hit your check down. And if anything, let's hit this to Bauer sharp right here. But, there's a defender right there, so I get it. But we really don't want to throw that. If anything, step up into that pocket and take those rushing yards just to, make them respect it. But, that's an interceptable ball, not a good ball. So there were the turnovers mixed in here as well. So let's get to the hot take. And it's not really a hot take. I really don't think you can debate it. This was by far the worst offensive performance of the Brian Kelly era. So you just compare it to last year. There was only 1 yard per play game that we had worse than Clemson and Louisiana Tech, and that was that Florida game where we ran 92 plays. So the offense was able to at least sustain some drives in that game. Obviously, 2023, every offensive game was great. 2022, there was a few rough ones. Auburn and Arkansas, you're still able to win those games. But those are against P4 teams, not Louisiana Tech, who's really not all that great other than number 10, Kobe Fields, who, of course, used to play for us. All of that to say, this was bad, right? PFF actually was somewhat kind to some of the offensive linemen. I don't want to get too deep into it because, I feel like college PFF offensive line grades are the most inaccurate, but they also graded the LSU tight end room brutally, which, it is what it is. This was just so bad. It was so bad. And I think some of it was the odd front, the 3-3-5 stack. This was actually a two-man rush with a QB spy. I won't get into the route concepts. There was another angle that showed some staticness, if you will. And so Garrett just takes the sack. You just have to throw this football away. I really don't know what Garrett is doing here, and lucky enough we were able to make a long field goal. And what makes this 4.9 even worse is that you had this ridiculous Harlem Berry run that was in pure garbage time. So, yes, this run from Harlem was ridiculous. That's a really good block by DJ Chester on the second level. But Louisiana Tech has given up at this point. Once again, it shouldn't take away from a true freshman and his big spot. But if you take this run out of it, the number actually goes all the way down to the mid 4-yard per play mark. So I didn't say that well because this is almost 5 a.m. and I'm delirious. I've been up 24 consecutive hours. But, God, it's hard to not be worried because the truth is the offense hasn't really been great in either game. At least in Clemson, it was methodical and sound. This was just downright sloppy. So hopefully things get cleaned up. The injuries do make you worry about it, but maybe someone like Harlem Berry can pick us up there. But, it really was the worst offensive performance of the Brian Kelly era. And hopefully, like I just said that. Anyway, we'll talk to you soon. It is Power Hour SEC. Boom! And tonight we are doing some lemon pepper chicken wings. Let's go.